Now we will go to the next speaker, who is Sheiwa Mahboubi. Sheiwa Mahboubi is the spokesperson for the Campaign to Free Political Prisoners in Iran, CFPPI. She is herself a former political prisoner at a very young age, and so very familiar with the conditions in the prisons of the Islamic Republic firsthand. And she's been campaigning for years for the freedom of political prisoners and against torture in prisons. And so we are delighted to have Sheiwa with us today. The mic's yours. Thank you, Sheiwa.
Thank you so much, Behram. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me here. Well, obviously, many of you have raised very valid points that perhaps I echo those points. And I don't know how many of you have seen the recent hacked videos that basically Behram mentioned. Just recently, a group of hacktivists hacked some of the security cameras in Evin prison. In the video footage, when you see it, or if you had a chance to see it, you see that how the guards are basically dragging prisoners on the floor. In another footage, you see that how they beating up the prisoners. And so obviously the Campaign to Free Political Prisoners have been reporting what's happening in prison and the torture and the treatment of political prisoners. But I think perhaps this is the first time that people around the world virtually entered a prison in Iran and got a glimpse of how the Islamic regime treating political prisoners. And one of these hacked footages is shown that how when they arrested labor activist Sepide Gholian, but what is not captured in this video is how they treated Sepide after the arrest and how they tortured Sepide Gholian, which Sepide has written about it extensively and what happened after that. The footages are only a few examples of what is happening in prison in Iran. The torture of hundreds of thousands of prisoners, that include political prisoners and non-political prisoners, obviously, and their sufferings at the hand of the Islamic regime in Iran have not captured in any camera, in any video. There is no footage from the torture of Sattar Beheshti, who was a worker and a blogger who died as a result of being tortured. There is no footage of the torture the labor activists from Haftepe, Ismail Bakhshi, went through. There is no footage of the time when in 2016, 17 workers from Aghdare gold mine were flogged just because they were demanding their rights. So there are millions of examples which it's just impossible to list them here in this limited time. But I would like to use this opportunity and focus on the basically jailed laborers and also the unions. And I would like to use this opportunity to emphasize actually on the important role of union and basically the labor unions and organizations. You see, I mean, from my experience, and I've been active for years and years, the supports and solidarity from the labor unions and organization in the last 42 years have been vital and extremely important to the labor rights activists and also the people in Iran. However, I believe the unions collectively, which I'm sure you agree with me, have the power to mobilize worldwide. And I believe they must use this power. This is the time for the labor unions to use their influence and demand the expulsion of the representative of the Islamic regime from the International Labour Organization, ILO. Just recently, more than 700 rights activists, including labor activists, the former and current political prisoners and their families, they signed a letter and they sent it to the UN Human Rights Council demanding an investigation into the crime against humanity committed by the current president, Ibrahim Raisi. You see, when you look at the situation of Iran, this regime has committed 42 years of crime against workers and workers' rights activists by depriving them of their rights, by harassing them and their family, torturing them, imprisoning them, and even executing them for simply organizing a May Day, for example. The labor unions and organization must demand an investigation into this crime. And I'm wondering what stopped them from doing the same thing, to pressure the UN to investigate this crime. It's time that the labor unions take further action, in my view, and use their power to pressure their governments to politically boycott the Islamic regime in Iran, investigate their crimes, and to hold them accountable, hold the regime accountable for suppressing, torturing, harassing, and imprisoning thousands of labor rights activists in Iran. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Shiva. Fantastic. Just say some of the key points Shiva raised in Farsi. And چند نکاتی که شیوا محبوبی سخنگوی کمیته مبارزه برای آزادی زندانی سیاسی گفتن، من خلاصه‌شو خیلی سریع اینجا میگم. گروهی از فعالین اینترنتی اخیراً دوربین‌های مداربسته زندان اوین را هک کردند. در ویدیو مشاهده می‌کنید که نگهبانان یک زندانی را روی زمین می‌کشند و زندانیان را کتک می‌زنند. ما در کمیته مبارزه برای آزادی زندانیان سیاسی بارها گزارشات و اخبار شکنجه زندانیان را منتشر کردیم. اما احتمالاً این اولین بار است که مردم در سراسر دنیا به صورت مجازی وارد یک زندان در ایران شده و می‌بینند زندانیان چگونه شکنجه می‌شوند. یکی از دوربین‌های هک شده دستگیری فعال کارگری سپیده قلیان را نشان می‌دهد. اما چیزی که در این دوربین‌ها ضبط نشده است صحنه‌های ضرب و شتم و شکنجه سپیده پس از دستگیری است. سپیده در این رابطه به اینکه چه اتفاقی افتاد نوشته است. صحنه‌های ضبط شده توسط این دوربین‌ها تنها چند نمونه است. شکنجه صدها هزار زندانی و لحظات زجر کشیدنشان در هیچ دوربینی ضبط نشده است. هیچ دوربینی صحنه شکنجه و جان باختن ستار بهشتی را ضبط نکرده است. هیچ دوربینی شکنجه فعال کارگر اسماعیل بخشی را ضبط نکرده است. هیچ دوربینی صحنه شلاق زدن 17 کارگر معدن طلای اداره را که جرمشان مبارزه برای حقشان بود ضبط نکرده است. میلیون ها نمونه وجود دارد که در این زمان کوتاه امکان اسم بردن آنها نیست. مایلم از این فرصت استفاده کنم و بر اهمیت نقش اتحادیه‌ها و سازمان‌های کارگری تاکید کنم. حمایت و همبستگی اتحادیه و سازمان‌های کارگری در طول 42 سال اخیر برای فعالین کارگری و مردم ایران حیاتی و بسیار مهم بوده است. اکنون زمان آن فرا رسیده است که اتحادیه‌های کارگری نفوذ و قدرت خود را به کار گرفته و خواهان اخراج نمایندگان جمهوری اسلامی سازمان جهانی کار شوند. اتحادیه‌ها به صورت جمعی قدرت سازماندهی جهانی دارند و باید از این قدرت استفاده کنند. اخیراً بیش از 700 تن از فعالین عرصه‌ها، زندانیان سیاسی سابق و کنونی و خانواده‌هایشان نامه‌ای را امضا و به شورای حقوق بشر سازمان ملل ارسال کردند. خواسته امضا کنندگان این است که جنایات ابراهیم رئیسی، رئیس جمهور کنونی رژیم، تحت رسیدگی قرار بگیرد. رژیم 42 سال است که کارگران را از حقشان محروم کرده، اذیت و آزار، شکنجه، زندان و حتی اعدام کرده است. اتحادیه‌ها و سازمان‌های کارگری باید خواهان رسیدگی به این جنایات شوند. اکنون زمان آن فرا رسیده است که اتحادیه‌ها فراتر قدم برداشته از قدرت خود استفاده کرده و خواهان بایکوت جمهوری اسلامی به خاطر سرکوب، شکنجه و زندان هزاران فعال کارگری شوند. خیلی ممنون از شیوا محبوبی. Thanks Shiva for that.